The history of No. 9 Squadron RAAF and its precursor units can be categorised into 4 distinct eras of the squadron's operational life. The fleet's cooperation squadrons. The era of the Iroquois from 1962 to 1971. The post-Vietnam War era between 1972 and 1989. And the current iteration of the squadron operating the MQ-4 Sea Triton. The squadron motto, Vidimus nec vidimur, we see without being seen, remains a very appropriate motto for the squadron in its maritime intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance tasking using the Northrop Grumman MQ-4 Sea Triton. In this series we will cover all 4 eras of 9 Squadron RAAF. The Australian Air Force was created by government on the 31st of March 1921, assuming the prefix of Royal a few months later. Before 1921, the Australian Flying Corps of the Army was the main proponent of military aviation in Australia, with considerable initiative shown by the Royal Australian Navy in operating aircraft from warships. This initiative faltered in 1923, but some experience was gained using aircraft to support hydrographic survey of the Great Barrier Reef off the far north coast of Queensland. In 1925, the government opted to build a seaplane carrier for the Navy and ordered 6 Seagull Mark III aircraft to equip the vessel. No. 101 Fleet Cooperation Flight RAAF was formed at Point Cook, Victoria on the 1st of July 1925 to operate 3 of the 6 Seagull Mark III seaplanes ordered by the government. Following arrival by ship in April 1926, the 6 amphibians were erected and test flown at RAAF Point Cook and allotted to 101 Fleet Cooperation Flight. They used the yacht club on the foreshore as a base, and a hangar-like 3-bay shed was built to accommodate 3 aircraft with their wings folded. Adjacent working facilities were also established. 3 of these aircraft were deployed to Bowen in Queensland in August 1926, and at the same time, No. 101 Fleet Cooperation Flight began land-based operations supporting the Great Barrier Reef survey. In January 1928, Cabinet declined the continuation of the Royal Australian Navy Fleet Air Arm. RAAF was to provide the aircraft pilots and maintenance personnel for the new seaplane carrier, with the Royal Australian Navy to provide observers and telegraphists, although naval officers, until the 1930s, could still undertake pilot training. Thus, the subsequent Air Force and Navy manning for the various ships and aircraft detachments, while Navy had operational control of the embarked RAAF aircraft. The seaplane tender HMAS Albatross was launched at Cockatoo Island Dockyard, Sydney on the 23rd of February 1928, and land-based Seagull Mark III operations continued from Bowen until December that year. HMAS Albatross was commissioned in Sydney on the 23rd of January 1929. 101 Fleet Cooperation Flight, personnel and stores, returned from Bowen in Queensland to Point Cook in Victoria to embark on HMAS Albatross on Port Phillip Bay on the 21st of February 1929. At Geelong, on the 25th of February 1929, the 6 Seagull Mark III amphibian aircraft were hoisted aboard the Albatross. The flight operated from HMAS Albatross between 1929 and 1933, with some time at RAAF Base Richmond in New South Wales, until the 23rd of April 1933, when the ship was paid off into the reserve fleet due to Navy cruisers having developed a seaplane operating capability. The RAAF ordered 24 Seagull Mark V aircraft in 1934 to perform fleet cooperation and other roles. These aircraft had a metal hull and were strengthened for catapult launching. The aircraft types operated were the Supermarine Seagull III and Seagull V. The RAAF identified this generic family as Seagull, whereas British forces termed them Walrus. At times, replacement aircraft were borrowed from other forces, hence intermingling of the aircraft terminology. The earlier Seagull III had a propeller forward of the engine, and the aircraft was lowered and recovered from the sea by a shipboard crane. The Seagull V had a pusher propeller and was strengthened for catapult launch, although still requiring recovery on board ship by crane. 24 Seagull V aircraft were built especially for the RAAF and all had silver livery. The airframe number 4 had historically significant operational service, with what would be number 9 Fleet Cooperation Squadron between 1937 and 1944 on HMAS Australia, Sydney and Perth. Registered as VHALB from 1960 to 1972 and was seen airborne in the early 1960s in light blue livery. It was then privately owned, suffered damage during a forced landing in 1970 and was finally traded with the RAF Museum for a Spitfire, sadly forfeiting some very significant 9 Squadron historical value. Unfortunately, some historical accuracy had also been sacrificed by painting the aircraft in RAF camouflage that was inappropriate for Seagull Vs, which were only operated by the RAAF. The forward-mounted machine gun is not apparent in any photography of Seagull Vs in Australian archives, although some British aircraft were so armed. Following the initial purchase of 24 Seagull Vs, the British decided to manufacture the aircraft for their own needs and called it the Walrus, with differing versions being produced. The RAAF ultimately acquired 27 Walrus aircraft, which were operated by 13 different units, with some being replacements for Seagull V aircraft losses by number 9 Squadron. Walruses operated by the RAAF mostly had Royal Air Force or Royal Navy livery and retained the aircraft registration numbers allotted by those services. There are 8 battle honours on the 9 Squadron standard, although the unit participated in a number of actions while embarked on warships that were accorded other battle honours not reflected on the standard. Some of these actions involved loss of aircraft and personnel. Formed from 101 Flight on the 23rd of April 1936 as No. 5 Fleet Cooperation Squadron at RAAF Base Richmond, the unit operated Supermarine Seagull V amphibians until it was reorganised as No. 9 Squadron on 1 January 1939. Relocating to RAAF Base Rathmines later that year, No. 9 Squadron provided air crews and Seagull V aircraft for Royal Australian Navy cruisers, conducting reconnaissance, gunfire spotting and anti-submarine patrols. After war was declared in September 1939, No. 9 Squadron detachments served in the Mediterranean until early 1942. On the 23rd of September 1940, HMAS Australia's Seagull V was lost off Dakar, likely downed by Vichy French fighters or anti-aircraft fire, while spotting during the Royal Navy's raid to secure free French control. In the Battle of Calabria on the 9th of July 1940, Sydney's Seagull V aircrews played a pivotal role in a major naval clash off southern Italy. Launched by catapult, the aircraft scouted the Italian fleet, including 2 battleships, relaying their position to Sydney and the Allied flagship HMS Warspite. Flying at low altitudes, the crew braved anti-aircraft fire and potential interception by Italian fighters to provide real-time intelligence. During the engagement, they spotted Sydney's 6-inch gunfire, radioing corrections that helped land straddling salvos on Italian cruisers, contributing to the enemy's retreat under smoke cover.
6-inch gun, and we carried an aircraft on board, what they call a pusser's duck, what they call a walrus plane. That's the name. It's a float plane. She was hooked up to a crane, and all hands, and we pull her up off the deck, and then the guy would be swung out over the ship, and she'd be lowered into the water, and then she'd go out and search all areas around, if there are any submarines and all sorts of boats, something might be waiting for you somewhere to knock you off. And we had, they were Air Force crew on board Australian ships. When it was time for them to fly at sea, all hands would be piped on deck, and we'd just pick up the ropes and pull her in and swing the derricks out and lift this plane up and drop her over the side. And then when it came time to come in, she might go out on a reconnaissance, see if there's any submarines and things like that around. when it time to come in, the captain would slew the ship around, make us clear wake for it to come in and land on instead of rough seas. The ship was 10,000 tonnes, so it'd swing around, and the act of swinging the ship around would calm the seas down, and the plane would come in and land on that bit of water.
But our aircraft was set up, the old Passes Duck. It's a Walrus pusher plane with 3 people in it. The pilot, the observing officer who was a Navy officer, and a wireless, a leading hand telegrapher, Sparker. He was a machine gunner, and they were doing the spotting for us, saying, you're too far over, or you lift your range a bit and that. Well, 3 planes attacked them, and they turned out to be Royal Air Force planes, we found out later. We were told that the observer in our plane had his .45 revolver, which he's carrying, had that out, and he was firing at the other planes with a .45 with a revolver. And anyhow, the plane, she fell 2,000 feet out of control, and the pilot got under control. Well, this is the plane from the Sydney. They catapulted off first, and they took her into, managed to get into Merseymatru inside the Egyptian border. Of course, when she landed, it fell to pieces, just collapsed. Now, sitting on a catapult, and when they're ready to catapult it, the catapult expands out, it's extended, and it's fired. It's a big cartridge, just ordinary, like a blank cartridge, full of cordite, and it's about 6 inches in diameter. That goes put into a chamber, or into a breech, and the impulse from that goes into a big chamber, which works onto a drum that works a cable, and those cables are hooked onto a part underneath the seaplane. And of course, when the drum spins around very quickly, pulls the plane off like a catapult. So it's catapult off, and when it hits the end of the catapult, it's doing 60 miles an hour, and it drops a bit towards the water, and they pick up and away they go, you know.
Our aircraft, a Walrus amphibious plane, that was doing what they call spotting for our targets, and they'd say, right, you know, you're firing short, or you're firing over, or something like that. So they would, you know, be in touch with the ship, and they'd, you know, or shift your target there, shift to there. But anyway, at one stage of the game, there were 3, according to me, there were 3 planes on Malta, the air defence of Malta at that time. And they were biplanes, something a little bit smaller than the gypsy moth, you know, things that we fly around here. And those 3 were called Faith, Hope and Charity. Those planes came over, and the Brits apparently didn't recognise what the Passes Duck looked like or who it belonged to, so they shot it up. The story later on was corrected there, and they reckon it was an Italian plane that shot them up. But anyway, the old Passes Duck got shot up, and it staggered away, and it crashed on Merseymatru Aerodrome, and the crew just got out and walked away from it.
In the Battle of Calabria, the Seagull V's slow speed, around 135 miles per hour, and light armament made these missions perilous, with recovery by crane onto Sydney equally hazardous amid rough seas and air attacks. The battle, though inconclusive, secured an Allied convoy and showcased the aircrew's courage in bridging air and naval operations. Off North Africa, Seagull V crews further supported the Western Desert Campaign by spotting for bombardments, despite their aircraft's vulnerability to enemy fighters and flak. Japan's entry into the war in December 1941 recalled the Royal Australian Navy cruisers to the Pacific to defend Australia. No. 9 Squadron air crews shared the sailors' fate. On the 19th of November 1941, Sydney sank with all hands, including 6 squadron members, after a mysterious clash with the German raider Cormoran. On the 8th of August 1942, 5 personnel died and 2 were wounded when HMAS Canberra was sunk off Guadalcanal. On the 1st of March 1942, HMAS Perth sank in the Sunda Strait during a fierce Japanese engagement, claiming 5 aircrews operating its Seagull V. These losses contributed to the squadron's 22 wartime casualties, most from ship sinkings. By January 1943, as shipborne amphibians became less critical, No. 9 Squadron relocated to Bowen's Flying Boat Base in Queensland, with 12 Seagull V aircraft. Operating alongside Numbers 11 and 20 Squadron's Catalinas, they flew anti-submarine and reconnaissance patrols in the Coral Sea, protecting Allied shipping. As the war's focus shifted, the squadron's role diminished, leading to its disbandment at Rathmines on the 31st of December 1944. No. 9 Squadron's Seagull V operations, bridging air and naval forces, forged a unique legacy in Australia's wartime defence.
Thanks for watching, and if you appreciate what we are doing, please subscribe and support us by checking out our merchandise shop.